The challenge with any new technology, any new idea, any new form of science is the timing issue. When does it become real? When do we jump in? When do we know it's worthwhile of our investment? And that's why my mantra has always been think big, start small, scale fast. The future happens slowly and then all at once. Don't let yourself be subjected to surprise. The big question is, when does all of this come together? When does this happen? Nobody really knows. We know the trends are accelerating. We know the speed of change of technology is coming to the industry. Well, there's some useful guidance with what is called the Gartner hype cycle. Gartner is a technology research firm that said, look, any new technology which comes to the forefront, it goes through this hype cycle. It appears with the technology trigger. We hit what we call the peak of inflated expectations, excessive hype and hysteria. And then people realize it's going to take a little bit of work to make it happen. And we hit the trough of disillusionment. Eventually, we figure out how to make it work, and things mature, and change happens. And it hits the slope of enlightenment, and eventually the plateau of productivity. What you need to do is figure out when you jump on the curve with any new idea, any new technology. We have a whole bunch of trends out there, each one of which might be massively transformative, disruptive. And they sort of percolate along for a while. And then any particular trend at any particular time can suddenly go supernova.
Hey, futurist Jim Carroll from the home broadcast studio, my new world for a long time yet to come. And what I'm calling Studio 2. What I'm doing here is I had a video leadership series that went out in January called Insight 2020 Leadership Strategies for the Era of Acceleration. And this was based on my 25-year time spent on stage advising organizations like Disney, NASA, the World Bank, the PGA of America, Johnson & Johnson, Nestle, global leaders on what they need to do to align to this world of which change is incessantly fast. Then the global pandemic hit, and all of a sudden nobody's thinking about leadership, but people are starting to think about leadership once again. So what I'm now doing is I'm taking this video series, there were 20 short video clips, each about 90 seconds long, and replaying them. So today's number 3 carries the theme, commit to it. And it was all based around a speech that I did in Austin, Texas last year for a company called Schneider Electric. Now they're very big in the world of manufacturing, a lot of industrial controls, manufacturing controls. They had me in to talk about what we call the industrial Internet of Things. These are technologies, sensor world, which provide us the ability to layer a whole bunch of sensors throughout our manufacturing plant to better monitor, manage, gain insight into our manufacturing process. And the challenge we were talking about with that audience, what I talked about in my stage and sort of an undercurrent of their whole event, was that a lot of organizations were trying out this technology, but weren't really going beyond what they called pilot purgatory. We would try something out and we would try it out, and we would never really commit to it. And this is a big corporate leadership issue. A lot of organizations never manage to make the commitment to doing what they need to do to move forward. Boom, 2020 hits, the pandemic comes along, and all of a sudden organizations aren't even committing to it. They're barely getting off the ground with anything because obviously there's a lot of trauma, pain, surgical stuff happening as they try to realign their organizations and merely survive. But the thing is, a lot of these trends, which they might have been caught in pilot purgatory with, all of a sudden are taking on a vast new importance. Take this concept of the industrial Internet of Things. As we slowly return to a world of manufacturing, social distancing is going to be absolutely critical. We've got to put in place a lot of safety protocols to ensure that operators on an assembly line are safe. One of the technologies we will do that with is a lot more use of what we call cobots, cooperative robots. But the industrial Internet of Things will also play a hugely critical role in accomplishing this because it allows us to do a lot of monitoring of the factory floor, a lot of monitoring of factory process, a lot of monitoring of factory equipment using very sophisticated sensors so that we have less human involvement. So it inherently provides us a safety opportunity. This is the kind of thing that before the pandemic hit, we were having trouble committing to it. It has now taken on a vastly more importance. So as you watch this clip, think about what is occurring, think about what might be possible in terms of this whole issue of committing to it. And then I'll be back with you briefly. Futurist Jim Carroll with 20 opportunities for transformative thinking in times of transformation. Number 3, commit to it. Here's a phrase to think about: perpetual pilot purgatory. This is a phrase that is used to describe what happens to a company or an industry when it decides to try to align itself to the future and sets out on a pilot project to figure out what to do next. And yet they never escape from the pilot project. They're always testing, they're always exploring, but they never commit to doing what they should to really align themselves to the future. They end up finding themselves in this state of purgatory where they're always testing, they're always experimenting, and they never turn it into reality. Commit to the future. Determine what comes next and make sure that you have a path and a commitment to get you there. The whole issue of committing to it is probably taking on more relevance than ever before, because if you think about what is happening as we somehow go into this post-pandemic world, number one, it's going to be a long time, but number two, a lot of trends are accelerating to a huge degree. I was reading this one article the other day that said some of the trends that we've been talking about in the past, which might have unfolded in a long, laborious, luxurious period of time, are all of a sudden accelerating to a huge degree. Take the concept of distance learning. We talked about it forever in the world of education, and now and all of a sudden, in a matter of a month, educators around the world have had to learn how to pursue the reality of distance learning. Same thing has happened with telehealth. Look, I've been talking about remote medicine for 25 years on stage, and a lot of the healthcare community talked about it, debated it. Are we going to do it? Are we really going to commit to it? And all of a sudden, they've had to, because of necessity, commit to vast new programs of telemedicine, supporting patients from afar, re-engineering the entire healthcare system, because it's an absolute reality. So it's a really good leadership trait to think about. Commit to it, commit to going forward, commit to aligning to the future, because that is our reality as we go forward into this vastly new complex and difficult world. I'll be back tomorrow with number 4 and the issue of what we continue to need to do as leaders to align to this extremely fast future. Thanks for watching.